Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here, and I hope you're all well and you're joining me today because we have got update 11022019 in progress in game. Actually, it's here, it's done, it's ready, and this is going to be adding the DMAR and the Lanz-Odermatt formula to the game. So this is going to be adding the new calculations for weapons penetrations, and this is going to change a few tanks around. Now it's going to change a lot for low tier tanks. Some tanks have actually been removed from the game already because they simply are not up to snuff. For instance, the H35 and FCM36 have been removed from the game in the French tech tree, so these two tanks here. Now the FCM36 is a strange one because although it's got a pretty terrible gun, it still has APCR, which isn't too bad at its BR. So it's interesting that it has been removed, but we'll have to see how that goes. One thing I didn't check was there's still 63mm penetration on that. I think that's crazy. And the H35 as well has been removed. Another tank that has been removed as well is the Japanese Hargo. So the Hargo has actually been removed, so no longer will you be able to get this tank if you're a new gamer. So basically, if you've had the game for ages, it's going to be in your reserve anyway, that's fine, but if you're new, you won't be able to get this tank anymore. The premium is still for sale though, for some reason. So obviously the base tank wasn't good enough, but the premium's fine. I don't get it. I imagine we'll see this one being shuttered as well soon, taken out of rotation. So the Kaini has been moved up to reserve now, and that's your new sort of starting lineup with the Igo Co, which now has its heat shell as a starting shell. The Type 95 as well, so which one's Type 95? Type 95. Oh, the 70mm gun. That's right. So, if I can find one. Wait, what are we talking about? The Type 95 70mm Type 3 heat shell has been added. Am I just going blind, or am I... Type 94? Okay then. Okay, yeah, not sure on that one. I'm not sure what that's referring to. I really don't know. Because there are no 70mm, there are 75mm. How strange. How very, very strange. Yeah, so, yeah. Sorry about that. So, yeah, there's been that change in a few of the shells. I don't know if that's a typo or something like that. I really don't know. Yeah, no idea what they're talking about there. Really no idea what they're talking about, so not a clue. There's something that's got a heat shell though. Maybe it's the Ho-I? I think actually, yeah, that Ho-I is Type 95, actually, if memory serves me correctly. Still has a 75. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, that's even a Type 2 heat shot. What the hell were they talking about there? That's going to bother me all day now. I'm really annoyed about that. It's not even typewriter. Anyway, we'll get to that another day. So yeah, there's been changes. So a lot of vehicles have lost a bit of penetration, others have gained some. There has been some changes to some ranks as well. So for America, the Locust is now at rank 1. You get it after the LVT. For God knows why, I don't understand this reasoning. It should still be a lot like tank territory reigns. I don't understand why it's a rank 1. It's still got scouting abilities though. So it's a rank 1 tank with scouting abilities. So it makes it the only rank 1 tank that has that ability. Even the Stuart, for instance, the same BR light tank does not have scouting abilities. So yeah, it's kind of a bit weird with that one. The M5A1 does have scouting. I don't know if that's new actually. I don't know if they've moved it. It's moved up, or I don't recall. Maybe it's just been a long time since I played it. Anyway, so yeah, that's happened. The M3 Lee has moved up to rank 2 now. So no longer is it a rank 1, it's rank 2. And the M8 HMC, the mortar cannon variant, has been put into rank 2 as well. Other than that, that's all the major changes. The big change though is to penetration values. So a good example is going to be probably tries to think of a good example now. Let's look at the M4A1. So the M4A1 Mark 61 shot still got a lot of penetration value, but the M72 shot has less penetration. Okay, that was the wrong example to use. Germany's had some big effects to it though with the 88mm. So for instance, the Tiger 1 still has decent penetration, but it has dropped a little bit in some respects. So the higher the filler, it used to be that the Panzergranat over the Panzergranat 39, this shell had slightly more penetration value, say. Now it doesn't, because it's got more explosive mass in it, therefore it crumbles a little bit earlier, it's got less rigidity. And then of course you still got your heat shell on there as well. Another big change has been to the KV2. So if we look at the KV2 for instance, it's lost a fair bit of penetration for its armor piercing ballistic cap shells and armor piercing shells. So these are basically, they're designed for like concrete mainly, they're not designed for tank combat. So you can see anti-concrete shell, and this means should have a little bit worse fuse sensitivity, and sort of it's not as easy to use. However, the standard HE shell has still got 65mm penetration. I'm not sure if they actually upped that slightly, but yeah, 65mm penetration, it's still going to absolutely womp whatever you shoot with it. So a few shanks have had some real big changes in that regard, and that's basically it. That's the main thing. The other big changes are for ships, of course, because ships should have changes with this as well. And this is the main reason I believe they've brought it in, is because the Japanese Navy are going to be coming in soon. So a lot of their ships' documentation has been lost, for instance. And also on some of the other nations' ships, documentation has been lost. So it's going to make it a bit different for their guns. So some of their guns are going to have a little bit less penetration. So some of the shells will have a lot less penetration. Because I do believe that this shell actually had a lot more penetration back in the day. But the armor piercing ballistic cap shell still has a very good penetration of 250mm, more than we're going to need until they introduce battleships really. So yeah, that's it really. It's not a huge amount of change. I guess the biggest change is just to the French reserves, because we're losing 2 of them. We're losing the H-35 and the FCM-36. Godspeed, tanks. Godspeed. So, as a swan song, as a farewell to these guys, let's just send you on holiday, send you on holiday, and send you on holiday. And you as well, Mr. PZTA. As a swan song to these two tanks, we shall take them out for one last battle. Give them one last chance to prove that they're worthy of this game. Let's do this. And a fitting send-off it will be here in Poland. Now, we'll switch out the MLE 1892 for the APCR shell. Godspeed, FCM 36, Godspeed. You served us well. We shall miss you. We shall miss you, Triangle Tank. We shall miss you. Alright, so let's see how well we go. Now, luckily we're fighting the Germans, Italians and Japanese. The only thing we have to worry about is the heat shell, and also them hitting us on the top mantlet there, the top of the commander's lookout section, because that's a slightly weak spot. But luckily the commander is quite low down, so he might survive a shot there. Now, we have got very good armour in this tank. This tank is very, very trolly in its armour. And it's something that I was wondering if they removed it because of that reasoning. Because it just had a very good frontal armour thickness. But Ian's, I don't think that's the case. I just don't understand why they're removing these kinds of vehicles, because this is an important French vehicle. This is an important French tank. It's a historical tank. It had quite a few innovative features. Guys moved. Can't see through all the smoke. Smoke clear. We'll get to this farmhouse here if possible. Let's see if we can make a run for it. Go, slow French tank, go! Go, go! Go, slow French tank, go, go, go! You can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it! Yay! We made it! We made it! We made it! Okay, let's get into a good position now and punish the enemy. Okay, it's Panzer II, I think. Anxiety setting in now. Will we make it? Now we've got A pretty well locked down at the moment, so that's what we need to do. This T-26 is about to get absolutely annihilated. Missed our shot. I think it's a Puma. No, it's a oh no, it's the most overpowered tank of them all. It's a Japanese. Oh, it's the Japanese boat tank. We've got no answer for Japanese boat tank. Japanese boat tank is best tank. As you can see, we just simply can't do anything to it because it's just such a strong tank. Japanese boat tank is just best tank. shooting at bushes right now. Where has boat tank gone? Where has boat tank gone? Oh no. Now, I would trundle out there, but I would be very exposed, and this tank isn't very good at many things. It's not very good at speed, it's not very good at fighting, and it's not very good when you're being flanked. So really, it's not a very good tank at all. As you can see, we can't even penetrate the Italian tank there. But luckily, he shouldn't be able to penetrate us either. We'll just be trading shots for a while. Oh, he got us! He went for the weak spot. Goodbye, sweet tank. Goodbye. You did well, FCM 36, you did well. But not well enough. H35, it's your time to shine. It's your time to show the world what you've got. And that is not a lot. Away we go. As you can see, this tank is roaringly fast. And this tank is quite innovative as well, you know. It was a cast hull, which was not really the norm back in the day. Normally, you know, you'd weld everything together, but this was cast, you know, it was strong. And it did cause a lot of problems for the Germans. You know, as joking aside, these tanks did cause a lot of problems with the Germans, who were using very low velocity guns at the time, and, you know, 20mm autocannons. You know, you look at the Panzer II and things like that. It wasn't until the Panzer IVs and all that lot started coming into true production that these tanks really started to do the job. But until then, they really struggled. And basically, what would happen is they would get into a position where neither of the tanks could really do anything to each other. And yeah, basically ended up with a tank that couldn't do anything. The Panzer 35T there, spawn camping us. Noble effort, guys. Noble effort. Well, that is the end of the two tanks. As we sit here watching it burn in flames. H35. At least you managed to shoot somebody and penetrate. At least you managed that. Alright, let's head back to the hangar. So yeah, those two tanks have been removed from game. So if you still own them, you'll still have them in your collection at least, but they're not really any use. As you can see, they're not much use at all, which is they're just hilarious. They're just little meme machines, really. The armor value is not bad on these things, you know, they're not terrible. Mainly the turret armor is pretty decent, but yeah, the FCM 36 has actually got some decent armor, but now they've changed everything. Things have really changed quite a lot, and they no longer have that slight advantage that they did have, especially with more tanks getting heat, for instance. If we look at the Kaimi right now, you'll notice that its APHE shell has got, you know, 47mm penetration now, and that's fairly decent, especially for this BR. Then you have the Koenig, which is the tank that we got hit by. It starts off with the APHE with 40mm of penetration at 500 meters, which is generally where you're going to be fighting. So they still have some decent punch behind them. Now, of course, APFSDS has had a change as well. So the JM33 is now around about 470mm of penetration. One thing that we don't have is the density of the round, the weight of the actual rod, which is needed for the calculations for this tank, for this shell, because the calculator they gave us, in all their wisdom, needs that part input into it, and we don't have that, of course, so that's useful. But if we just take it for a test drive, you'll see that really not much has changed in the top tier. It's very much the same. Not a huge amount has actually gone into changing this. And if we just shoot at the T64B up there, we're still penetrating it frontally. We're still going through the front plate without any problem at all. There are some more modern tanks and things. The Abrams, for instance, can be problematic, but you're generally going to be pretty much able to take out everything with this shot if you can actually aim it. There are going to be some changes, of course, but they're not going to be monumental. It's more so the lower tiers and mid tiers that are going to suffer. One tank that I think will actually be quite a menacing tank on the battlefield now is actually the ARLs. Not so much the ARL 44, which has basically the American cannon on it, although it does get good 100mm of penetration. 4.0 though, that's not that great, but the ARL 44, if we look at the penetration value now, 214mm of penetration. That thing is going to be pretty deadly. At 5.7, it's going to be pretty decent for penetration values, not for tank value though, because it's still just a very, very poor tank. The SA-050, so the French version of the Sherman, the version of the Sherman, basically, as you can see, the PRT-51 has still got amazing damage, and the APCR's got very good damage too. So this is really going to help the British tanks as well. If we look at, say, the Firefly. The Firefly's got decent penetration, sort of about 170mm at 500 meters with the APC-BC shell. So it's going to be very, very good still, and it's going to really help in that respect. There has been changes to APDS as well, APSDS, sorry. In that respect, it's still very good penetration. You're still going to get very good penetration with these shells. But now, solid shot as well has had a little bit of a kick in the butt and got a little bit stronger. So, arm-piercing ballistic cap shells are going to be quite strong. And as you can see, there's not a huge amount of difference between the two. That sort of long range engagement, but of course you have got the velocity value of the APDS shell. But this is going to make the stock grind a little bit less painful for some of these tanks, which is kind of nice. Yeah, whatever, I don't care. Yes. Research, finish. Get away, go away. But things like the German and the Russian tanks, for instance, they're going to find some differences. So things like the Panzer IIIs, some of their shells are going to be a little bit less, just a little bit weaker. So you're going to find people using probably the APC-R shells a little bit more often in that respect. Stugs, for instance, as well, the early Stugs, they're just going to have a little bit less punch to their shells. They're going to struggle a lot, so you're going to probably find them using heat rather than the APC-BC round, just because it just really lacks that penetration. One thing I didn't actually check was the Italians, so things like the Breda. Lost a bit of penetration, still 150 odd millimeters of penetration, but it has gone down a bit, I believe, from memory. So some of these vehicles are going to struggle, especially I imagine these ones. Yeah, so some of the lower tier tank destroyers are really going to struggle a lot. 41mm is still not too bad. but yeah, they're really going to have issues. So you're going to find people probably wanting to use the heat shell on them a bit more. Noises and 41 and 64. But then that's not been changed too much. But yeah, it's going to change quite a few vehicles' abilities, so it will be interesting to see how this goes. If this really is a big change in the gameplay. We won't know for a few weeks, of course. It's going to be a while before we get the real information about this, because, as I said, this is basically a beta test we're doing. We're in testing for it. So we won't know until about a week, 2 weeks, a month's time, when we start getting proper changes coming through for BRs and stuff like that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, found it somewhat informative. Let me know in the comments below if you have. There is a Discord server now, just there. Feel free to join it, it's in the links down there. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, bye bye.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one. You have been the one for me.